Hello, everybody. Today is June 25th, Sunday. As I've mentioned in previous videos, today is the day that Mercury perfects its its square to Neptune, and also Mars perfects its square to Uranus. And, interestingly enough, I looked at the current chart of right now as I'm recording this, and the moon is in Virgo in a perfect opposition to Neptune. So the moon is getting hit by the beams of Neptune to the degree right now. And I woke up. I did actually wake up early this morning and participated in a Byung Chul book club, which had been a long time in the planning, and it went off well without a hitch, and I managed to get some some input in and not feel too awkward and not feel too intellectually out of my league, and it was a worthwhile thing. I don't know why I was, whatever. I don't have to explain that sometimes you can be anxious or in the anticipation of such events, right? And I also have a neighborhood library launch party to look forward to. Something about this all. Both the book club and the neighborhood library launch party being indicative of the planet Mercury, I thought I would mention something else that happened, right? Is that after I made my last video, or at least my last, I did this one that was 50 minutes long. It was a bit longer than I usually record these videos, and I didn't even get through all the ideas I sketched out in my notebook. I only touched upon some of them, so I just feel like there's this kind of like flooding over, brimming over with. It could be the flooding of Neptune. It could be the Uranus wanting to break out and break free. It could be all these kinds of influences. But what am I saying? What about this? There was this thing that happened since I recorded that video that I thought fit very well with the theme. Was that I am living at my parents' house, I must admit, with my mom, who is a widow. I don't know who watches this channel, how many people know me, but my dad died 10 years ago, and there's something about Neptune I think that is resonant with this thing about grief. And what I always thought was interesting is that we've been doing this thing to I'm not getting all the details. We're cleaning some rooms, emptying some stuff out, and there's all this stuff that belongs to my dad that over the course of 10 years after his death, my family has not been able to let go of. We've let go of some of my dad's belongings and some of my dad's stuff, but we certainly have not let go of all of it. And so there's this continuing process to let go of all the material objects that are remnants of this man's life, and one of them was a notebook from when we were on when I was a teenager. I'm pretty sure I was probably only like 19 or something like that, and I was going on these bike trips with my dad and stuff, and I was considering reading out of this notebook, but then I figured, I'm the only one who probably, or my family or whatever, like I doubt that there's that many people that are really interested in this, right? But the reason why I bring this up is that there's, for a number of reasons I find this interesting, is that obviously, the impulse to write is like very Mercury related, Mercury being the god of writing, and my dad died when he was 57 or 58. I'm pretty sure it's something like that. Maybe it doesn't look good that I don't remember the exact year. I'm pretty sure it was 57. And so he is a boomer and everything, right? Born in 55. And, if I'm on Facebook, there's a lot of the boomer generation on Facebook. And I made a reference to, in my last video, about bad boomer takes with Mercury Square Neptune. And there's something about there is a quality to my dad's writing that is very boomerish, although I think that kind of aspect has come out more in the 10-year, being a boomer in 2023 means something different than what it meant back in 2012, 2013, you know what I mean? Like that, the boomerness kind of as it's like a fine wine, right? Like it's like the wine or the cheese that develops with age. That there's this initial quality of boomerism that's been there since the 70s, the 80s, and when these people were young, the 90s, and then it's only kind of in contrast when you've got younger generations to contrast it with. It does it come out, right? But not just the thing about bad boomer takes and boomer jokes and the boomer perspective, but this thing that's about when I'm on Facebook, I'm like reading people's posts, and one of the things that I've been noticing recently a lot around this transit of Mercury Square Neptune has been I don't know if this is from people who are involved with astrology and keeping track of the transits, and so being consciously aware of these Mercury Gemini dynamics has brought an increase of this out. But like the basic thing of having writing groups, right, of people who are into creative writing or talking about creative writing exercises or talking about the joy of writing or the now I've found my voice as a writer and the inspiration to write and all this. I think this is all very indicative of Mercury Square Neptune, right? And it was kind of funny because I recognized this in my dad, was that my dad, he read a lot of books that were like comedy books, stuff that wasn't too serious. And I don't know if it's this quality of like monkey see, monkey do, that it's like, like if you spend a lot of time watching MTV music videos, then like you have this, it's not even, is it your own volition that you want to be a rock star, that you want to start a band, or is it just from having so much of that input that's like, you have no choice but just regurgitate what you're fed, right? But it's, when it comes to reading, as time goes on, there's actually less and less people spending time reading books. And and I don't know how many people actually put the time and energy into doing journaling and stuff like that. But I think there's something about the process of aspiring to be a writer. Like it's like in the age of TikTok and all this kind of stuff. I think it's kind of sad that apparently there's like surveys done where they ask kids what they want to be when they grow up, and they say, I want to be a social media influencer, or I want to be a YouTuber, or I want to be a TikToker, whereas in how much of this is just based on what you're intaking, and then just feeling like you need to regurgitate that but there's this, I think the impulse to be a writer is something different, or that there's some kind of like, there's something that happens even just in going through your day-to-day life, and then the impulse to capture that into text, not to take pictures of it on your phone, not to make little video recordings, but to actually write that as a story and then imbue that with your own subjectivity, like you're narrating it from your own perspective. And it's kind of funny because it's like, even though my dad has been gone for 10 years, you can pick up this journal that he would have written, and the journal's about a father-son bike trip, so I was there, so I remember it. But there's this thing of like that, even when the person is long gone, it's like that their subjectivity is there in this fragment of text telling you about, this is how this body experienced these events, and these are the jokes it made, and these are the and there's something about the god Mercury. And the Mercury, what they said about Mercury was that Mercury could go back and forth from the underworld and the day world. And it's sort of like, it's kind of funny because it's like these people that have been long gone, deceased, like I could read James Hillman, who died in 2011, and feel very close to him by understanding his thoughts, even though I've never met the guy. Or I could read a journal of my own dad, and then that brings me as if he's here. But just from having this little time capsule thing in the form of writing, right? But it's so funny though, because it's just like the impulse. My dad was, I don't necessarily saying that my dad was ever a very good writer, but this thing of like, this whole thing, it's being a dilettante or something, or an amateur. Like, you may not be a very good guitar player, but if you have where does this impulse, this inspiration come to keep going, even if you're not going to get a record deal, if you're a writer, if you're not confident about getting a book deal, but there's some sort of this I think there's something about the Neptune, about being a source of like the muse or inspiration that inspires you with ideas, or with creating maybe even a fantasy world, or with the motivation to just keep rendering images, or to keep there's something about the Mercury and Neptune that I find together that's really sweet about all this, to just sort of like embrace that act of writing, of embrace that kind of like. And I'm also, there's this whole thing about like, I don't know, it's get distraction to talk about like meditation and stuff like that. So often meditation, they make the mind into the bad guy, but here it's like Mercury, like Thoth is like thought, right? The thought, Mercury is the god of the mind, and the mind is very much involved in writing, in communicating ideas and whatnot. But there's this there's a sense of liminality that comes with Neptune, right? And this instance of finding this old journal of my dad's, and the liminality of being a kind of like a bridge to the underworld, right? And which brings me to another point that I had, which I was thinking of including my first video that I didn't, which was the association between the Neptune planetary archetype, and the Tarot Association. Now, of course, the Tarot has been around much longer than our knowledge of these outer planets have been, but it's a general consensus within the people who do these associations, I think, that they give Neptune the association of the hanged man, right? And there's a spiritual, there's like, Neptune's disorienting, and it has to do with these sorts of visionary experiences, and the hanged man is hanging himself upside down, right? And the idea that it's a kind of an altered state, putting yourself in this precarious position, and not only that, but it gives the person hanging upside down the view of the upside down, the flip side, or the other view of life that you don't normally see from your normal upright position, right? And that I'm kind of transitioning here to a different idea, but there's something about the whole Neptune arc, the hanged man. There's certain things about that. There's certain implications of like one could be the hanging as a punishment, or the hanging as a kind of a self-submission, right? But maybe you're not. Are you being punished, or is it you're kind of admitting? You're kind of. It's kind of, and it feels kind of like a vulnerable position, almost like the dog rolling over. Or look, I'm wearing a Blade Runner t-shirt today, which reminds me of that scene in Blade Runner where the guy is like, you're in a desert and you find the turtle on its back. Do you flip the turtle back over onto its side, or do you just watch this suffering turtle on its back, kind of thing, right? There's something about that has to do with the hanged man, I think, right? And that the other obvious reference that comes to mind is the TV show Stranger Things, how they had the upside down, and that they had this whole thing about kids being sucked into the upside down, going missing, and then in the second season, the kid comes back, but the kid's haunted by the visions of the upside down, and then it's almost like the acid flashback or something, where the upside down starts breaking into the real life, or like classic Philip K. Dickian trope of like the dream is not over yet, you're still in the dream. Which has obviously been, played off of so many different reality bending fictions or whatever, right? But that whole quality, anyways, of reality bending, right? Or of a view to the other side, the communication with the underworld, communicating with the land of the dead, that I think there's very strong with the Mercury-Neptune dynamic. And there's something, though, about the upside down and the hanged man that is kind of like, it kind of creates a barrier in a sense that I think that it can be. I get this thing coming up anyways, that unless I know people are on the level, I have to kind of compartmentalize that archetype of the hanged man, because it's like you don't want to if you're living life with people who aren't submerged in the upside down or are not acquainted with the upside down, that it's like you're not sure if it's safe to even talk about it or even reference that this thing exists, right? That it's that the and there's a sort of element of, and this is maybe I'm just buzzing off of the Byung Chul Han meeting this morning, but there's the element of horror and danger and all this kind of stuff that, maybe doing astrology videos, I don't even know if this is out of, maybe this is out of place to talk about astrology videos because people just like nice stuff or something like that. People want to know about all the good things. I don't know. I mean, I notice this bias towards positivity with a lot of the people doing astrology or doing it in the context of like a life coach, self-development, what's planning your next business advancement or something like that around the transmits, or this is a good opportunity for this, or when they're talking about the Hanged Man and the Neptune and going and submerging into the upside down, there's this whole kind of like the psychedelic capitalism kind of thing where psychedelic retreats are just opportunities to become more productive or something. But I think the real archetype of Neptune is the watery depths, which are kind of horrifying in a way, in the sense that it's kind of like the undoing. The real upside down is also, maybe it has to do with Pluto, right? Because Pluto is more of the underworld archetype. Maybe it kind of blends in from one of these planets to the other, right? But the where am I going with this? Oh, I'll just say it straight up, I guess, because I think I mentioned before that I was thinking about trying therapy or something like that, and I had a discovery session with a therapist, but it's like I did not get, I don't know if I'd want to do therapy with somebody if I had to pretend that the upside down didn't exist, or that I had to do all the therapy from the mentality of a day world ego that had goals and dreams and ambition. And like Neptune what do we mean by dreams? Is dreams and aspirations for what I want to do and what I want to become in my day world waking life? Or is the dream more of an undoing, right? Is like, as Hillman says, the dream and the underworld, the dream is something that's kind of undoing you, and that for anybody who has a vested interest in keeping some sort of construct from being undone, the principle of some of the stuff that can be very almost corrosive, right? That can be like the psychedelic dissolving quality that I feel comes in with Neptune, could be very threatening to something that wants to approach therapy from an idea of, how do I take back control over my life, right? How do I get my life back, right? How do I save myself from the upside down, right? Versus like the real archetype, I think, of Neptune is a kind of like a surrender, and knowing that like at some point, it's like the die before you die, that we're all going to have to go through this sort of process of giving up and letting go and surrendering anyways. And I don't know, I'm just kind of riffing on it, right? That there's the desire for having some sort of control, or trying to navigate life in such a certain way that is built on a certain structure of thought, versus having that kind of collapse and fall apart, and then having these sort of like remnants or relics, right, of like there's the life that was, for example, like my father dying, like there's a family life that existed then that is no longer there. It's only a memory or an idea, but through these artifacts that were created through the process of writing, we have these sort of windows into a world which was there but which is no longer, kind of thing. And the idea that through the power of writing, in the same way that the writing can be a bridge to a loved one that was deceased who's left a journal behind, it can also be like the conception of new ideas, of new futures, because of language and writing is a tool of the virtual, right? The ability to say that this person was not there, but we all remember this person. We can all talk about this person. And look back in the past. We can also imagine a person who isn't now, but who could be in the future. Or we could imagine a situation that could be, and this is the whole thing of speculation, of positing different possibilities, of imagining different ways that things could be, even if they aren't now. And the thing is, I think this Mercury Neptune thing and the archetype of the Hanged Man is like, the Hanged Man may give by turning yourself upside down, by disorienting yourself, you're not, by looking at the world, you're not just seeing what is right in front of you, but you have a view into what is not, right? And if you're too lost in the world of what is not, then you're ungrounded, you're delusional. And there's like that line in MacBeth that all that is what is not, right? Yeah. I'm just... This I think this one today is really kind of like an extra one, because I don't really whatever, I already did video for this transit, and what's kind of funny is that if anything it would make more sense to be talking about the Mars-Uranus square that's been going on. And there has been some interesting stuff in the news about Russian coups and all that, but I won't tell you all about all that stuff, right? I mean, there's something about this Mercury-Neptune dynamic that has been particularly resonant anyways, and I just wanted to get a few more ideas in while it was still active, and this is especially the opposition of the moon to Neptune as I make this video, as I was saying, right? I'm just looking over my notes now. I think that's whatever. That's good enough. I'll just now I want to have, it'll be easier for you guys to consume rather than the long 50-minute video I did last time, right? And wish me luck if I end up going to this neighborhood library thing. Maybe it won't be so bad. But I don't know. It's an interesting day with lots of literary things, with Mercury feeling very active, and it's. Well, here, hopefully you guys, other people out there, are having a relatively decent time during these interesting astrology transits. Okay, thank you very much.